Welcome to Lessons Across Species. Someone asked me recently what my favorite surgery is, and I answered castration. In a room full of women, that landed exactly how you'd expect. Everyone laughed. It was a joke, but it was also basically the truth. From a veterinary perspective, castration is one of the most straightforward surgeries that we perform. The anatomy is usually predictable, recovery is often uncomplicated, and the effects can be significant. Across many species, reducing testosterone can reduce roaming, urine marking, sexual behaviors, and certain forms of aggression. It can make animals easier to live with, easier to manage, and sometimes safer for both themselves and the people around them. Over the years, I've castrated pigs, cattle, horses, llamas, goats, sheep, dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, rats, mice, sugar gliders, chinchillas, and probably a bunch of other species. And then there was a rooster. The surgery worked, the crowing did not stop. That rooster became one of the most useful teachers of my career because one of the biggest lessons veterinary medicine teaches you is that biology and behavior are not the same thing. Biology shapes behavior, sometimes profoundly, but behavior can also take on a life of its own. We see this throughout animal medicine. In livestock, castration has been practiced for thousands of years. Farmers observed that changing hormone levels often changed how the animal behaved. Bulls became steers, boars became barrows, stallions became geldings. These changes mattered because behavior matters. A horse may be magnificent as a stallion, but most owners don't need a breeding animal. They need a horse that can travel, work, and coexist safely with the other horses and the people. In cats, the effects can seem almost magical. The roaming decreases, the urine marking often decreases or goes away, and the frantic edges soften. In dogs, particularly in some intact males, the entire household dynamic can change. But there's an important limitation that people often miss. Timing matters. If a behavior is heavily driven by hormones and hasn't been practiced for very long, castration may dramatically reduce it. But if that behavior has been repeated, reinforced, and learned over years, things become more complicated. Take aggression. A dog that has spent years learning that aggressive behavior makes threats go away has developed more than a normal response. It has developed a strategy. That strategy may continue even after hormone levels change. The biology may shift, the learned behavior may remain. This is where I think many people become disappointed. They hope for a switch, but bodies don't really work like switches. They work more like weather systems. They're complex, influenced by many variables, and shaped by history. Not a single factor explains everything. And this brings us to the question that often comes up with discussing hormones and behavior. If testosterone influences aggression, risk taking, and sexual behavior, why not simply apply that logic to men who commit sexual violence? I understand why people ask, and I understand it as a veterinarian, and I understand it as a woman, and I understand it as a mother of three daughters. The question usually comes from a very real frustration with systems that fail victims and allow harmful behavior to continue. But veterinary medicine has taught me that the answer is more complicated than it first appears. Sexual violence is not primarily a libido problem, it's often a power problem. It involves entitlement, coercion, opportunity, access, and social systems that permit or excuse harmful behavior. Reducing testosterone may reduce certain drives in certain individuals, but it does not reliably eliminate the desire to dominate, control, humiliate, or harm. And that brings me back to the rooster. The hormone source was gone. The crowing remained. Because by that point, the behavior was no longer simply hormonal. It was practiced, patterned, rehearsed, embedded. That lesson extends far beyond veterinary medicine. Biology matters. It always matters. But biology is not destiny. It creates a starting condition, not a final outcome. What we reinforce matters. What we tolerate, that matters. And what we reward, that matters too. And if we ignore it, it matters. Across every species I've treated, the same pattern appears again and again. The earlier we address a behavior, the easier it is to change. The longer we rehearse it, the harder it becomes to undo. That's why I still think about that rooster. Not because the surgery failed. The surgery did exactly what it was supposed to do. The lesson was that changing the body and changing behavior are not always the same thing. And sometimes the most important question isn't what biology created, it's what repetition allowed to become permanent. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and check out the full Lessons Across Species essay linked below. I go much deeper into this story and what animals continue to teach me about being human.